All right, we're back with Aaron Cooper from Resident Inspect. Thanks for joining me again, Aaron.
Thank you.
That's okay. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of the more business aspects of running a property management company because obviously you've got two sides to running a business. You've got your income and you've got your expenses. And if you can minimize your expenses, you're going to maximize the amount of money that you're actually putting into your pocket. So what are the most effective strategies that you've found to minimize expenses in your property management companies?
Yeah. So what I like to do is kind of break down what our expenses are and our as you kind of figure out what areas are kind of the low-hanging fruit, and you can kind of work down from there. So I typically have broken it down into the biggest items that we spend our money on: our labor, um, our processes, our daily operation, and really the time away from the office is another huge, it kind of ties into both the processes and the labor, but
Mm-hmm.
monitoring our time away from the office is those three areas are what we try to focus on to figure out, are we operating in a way that we're producing a good quality product and service, but also being responsible with our time and the money that it costs us to produce that product and service. So labor is obviously the big one for most management companies.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing when you're looking at cutting any expenses, you've got to maintain the quality. Because if you don't maintain the
Mhm.
quality, you're going to lose your clients, and then you just have a snowball to the bottom, which you don't want. Um,
Yep.
what would you say the most common expenses that property managers can cut without actually compromising the quality of what they do?
Well, a lot of management companies still are not utilizing remote employees. And so labor is still an option. To the overall labor cost for the company can still be reduced by taking advantage of remote employees,
Mm-hmm.
um, and supplementing your core team with assistants, a leasing assistant, a maintenance coordinator assistant, things like that that can actually make your team more productive. They can manage more properties and not increase the labor exponentially,
Mm-hmm.
and still provide equal or even better service. So we found a lot of success in our labor costs by utilizing remote employees.
Mm-hmm.
Every company is a little bit different on how they want to structure that, but there's all the way from 100% remote to, one remote employee answering phones. But somewhere in the middle is probably where the most bang for your buck is.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, over COVID, everything was remote, which that
Yep.
whole pandemic just spearheaded this movement towards remote work, and I feel like everything's kind of getting a bit clawed back now. What's your take on that? Do you think it's better to be mainly remote, or is it better to be have like in office staff physically present doing things?
I think in property management, it needs to be a balance of both. I don't think that you can provide the quality that a local boots on the ground property manager can provide.
Mm,
I don't think you can do that remotely. Having market knowledge, driving through the neighborhood, seeing what's out there,
yeah.
just being involved in the community, I think is a very, very valuable aspect. So I don't think that you can completely eliminate it and still
Mm,
provide the quality that most property owners are going to demand.
mhm,
But I definitely think you can supplement it with remote employees and being virtual. The other aspect is that we found too was brick and mortar building. After COVID, we all realized we could start working from home uh, and not in the office. And
mm,
so one of the big expenses is just kind of a fixed cost in most property management businesses is their rent, or if they own the property, a mortgage, or have their cash tied up in owning a building. Um, but there's really not a whole lot of need for that anymore with video and the only place you really need a sign or an office for is to store your signs and lock boxes. And even that is something that doesn't necessarily need a couple $1,000 a month office building,
Yeah, yeah.
plus expenses, utilities, and maintenance and things like that. So between remote employees supplementing that and reducing the need for a brick and mortar office, you can quickly reduce a lot of expenses that way.
Yeah. As you say, then you're maximizing your revenue and
Right.
you're not compromising that quality, which is so important. Um, so how does technology factor into this thing? So obviously you've still got these labor costs, you've still got people that you need, whether virtually or boots on the ground. How can you factor technology in there to streamline it further?
Um, We found that process and workflow automation systems are really, really important for us to make us more efficient, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that things don't get missed. Um, and it's very, very helpful for your team, especially remote employees, to keep them on task, performing the way that you want, and executing your plan and your processes. So systems like Lead Simple or Apply or Podio,
Mm-hmm.
things like that can really, really help your workflow and process automation by building out, your leasing process and it trigger different aspects. That also helps reduce actual time spent emailing and text messaging and phone calls because a lot of that can be automated through these different systems. And so we're able to reduce the time we're spending typing out emails because most of what we do as a property manager, a lot of it is templated responses. It's the same email to an owner that has a vacancy. And if you have 20 vacancies, that's 20 emails. Well, if you can have a template already built out with your automation system and add your personal touch to the template for each specific owner, you're reducing a lot of time just firing off emails. Same thing
Yeah.
for rent, delinquency rates, lease renewal processes, and maintenance. The technology that's out there now with the workflows is really, really great. And that kind of ties into the AI that's happening um, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes down to you can very easily automate the $2 tasks, which then frees up your
Sure.
time and frees up your team's time. Um,
Yep.
the other thing is if you've got team members out or you're assigning team members to these tasks, well, their time can be better spent doing something a bit more profitable than just sending emails or going to drive by a property that they've had to drive 45 minutes out for, 45 minutes back, and then you've lost an hour and a half of their time and it hasn't actually made you any money. So it's
Right.
so important in terms of business growth.
Yep. And that's where we kind of started pulling away our inspections
Mm,
and going to a more virtual aspect of doing periodic inspections is because the time that we were spending driving to and from the and just the time being at the property was just really kind of a waste of our time, to be honest, and it was just a very expensive use of time.
mm,
And so by using technology to do virtual and remote video inspections has helped us reduce our time driving and use that time for either customer service or growing the business.
mm. Yeah, and as well as all that, you've obviously got some things that you can't necessarily reduce. Well, can you? Let's say your standard HVAC maintenance fee that you pay your HVAC guy to come and inspect your properties over. How is it actually possible to negotiate a better deal? What's the best strategy to try and reduce those costs?
Yeah, that's a cost that's passed on to a property owner.
Mm,
But still being a responsible property manager, bundling those services, obviously the easy one. So what we've done historically is contacted one of our local HVAC companies, negotiated a routine cleaning maintenance, a discounted rate if we guarantee, 200 uh, air conditioning system service.
mm,
And then we reach out to our owners and see who's interested and let them sign up and make it an optional type of thing if they want to take advantage of that. Some companies make it a mandatory process.
mm.
It's very helpful in reducing the cost for everybody as far as the property owner, But also on the property manager side, by doing that, especially doing it in the off season. So for air conditioning systems, we like to do that in the fall or winters when they're not being used, and the air conditioning companies are a little bit light on work. They'll give you better rates. They can get out there quicker. But it reduces our time spent dealing with maintenance in the summertime. We're
Yeah.
not getting nearly as many service calls and systems down because we've maintained them. We've cleaned the systems, 3 or 4 months prior. Um, and then that way we're not spending our time processing work orders and assigning emergency vendors and things on the weekends and nights and things like that. So it really does help, not necessarily a dollar and cent expense saving for a
Mm.
property manager, but definitely a time saving, which to me is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the time saving is actually a dollar saving because one of the most useful
Right.
exercises I went through when we were just setting up our business, it was okay, how much do you want to be making a year? How many hours a week do you want to work for that money? And then you've got your hourly rate. And anything below that hourly rate, that's something you can outsource. That's something someone else should be doing for you. Um, so if you can get into that sort of mentality, you know, your time is very valuable ultimately.
Yeah.
If you want to be
Yeah,
making 100,
absolutely.
200, 500K a year, your time is very valuable. Um, the other thing that just occurred to me, um, it's about the offer that you're able to present as a property manager, right? If in terms of negotiate, you said you bundle these services together. So if you have your HVAC maintenance bundle or whatever, that just makes you as a property manager a lot more appealing to a potential client.
Yeah. And even just thinking about it and being conscious of those kinds of opportunities and making it more effective or cost effective for your property owner um, is responsible. And it seems like common sense, but
Mm,
you'd be very surprised at how few property management companies and property managers actually take the time to do that and take the time to realize the cost savings that can provide yourself with time and your
yeah,
and your client with reduced maintenance.
yeah, and then you're presenting so much more value than your competitors, and you become the no brainer solution in your local market. Like
Yeah,
it's not rocket
you get a
science.
good reputation and
Yeah,
yeah, gets a good reputation and generates happy clients.
yeah, and it's happy clients turn into more clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time again, Aaron. I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Hope you have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.